So like many other sectors of the economy, the media industry has also been hit hard by the pandemic. In fact, one of the media houses affected is our very own Newzroom Afrika, where the pandemic has impacted news gathering processes and saw the cancellation of many in-studio interviews in order, of course, to adhere to the COVID-19 regulations. The question now, how do media houses continue to deliver news to audiences like you during this pandemic? Newzroom Afrika's Mbali Thethani takes a look.
It's been a year now since newsrooms around the world have been forced to change how they operate. Newzroom Afrika is one of those that continue to soldier on and churn out news despite the outbreak of COVID-19. Everyday life has changed, with screening being conducted on a daily basis once you enter the building. The wearing of masks and ensuring social distancing is also enforced. But how has the pandemic affected the operation of a newsroom?
The time when we had our first case, we had to start thinking about, first of all, how are you going to make sure that whatever quality of broadcasting that is on air needs to, represent who Newzroom Afrika is, the highest quality, the highest standards. But at the same time, how do we make sure that the rosters are not going to have an impact on us even having more cases of COVID-19.
Television being a visual medium, the company's guest relations team needed to think out of the box and embrace new mediums of booking guests.
We're so used to guests coming to studio, but now we had to adapt to things like Zoom, Skype, telephonics, and it was always just really difficult still trying to get a guest, because guests were like, but I'm not familiar with these kind of technologies. And sometimes I had to give guest tutorials on some of these things.
As COVID-19 cases continued to rise, many reporters were left vulnerable as they still had to continue to tell stories about the pandemic. Our Cape Town reporter, Mtongana, was one of the first to contract the virus. Mtongana says journalists played a critical role in the spreading of information at the height of the pandemic.
I saw the need of journalists to be able to get information, factual and accurate information that would be able to help society navigate its way around COVID-19.
The television industry is not the only sector that had to change how it produced news. Print media was largely affected and saw some magazines closing shop while other community newspapers folded for good. The Sunday Times editor says their newsroom is almost empty, with many journalists opting to work from home.
We're investing more in technology now in order to make sure that it's easier for colleagues to do their work wherever they may be around the country. So you don't have to be sitting in a Joburg newsroom to do your stories. So that, for me, is a major lesson.
Some in the radio industry, like this journalist from Power FM, says while radio reporters work from home, there are some positives that can be drawn from the pandemic.
A year ago, I wouldn't have thought of wanting to know about the medical fraternity and how a virus impacts the human body. Now it gives one an opportunity to say, while there is this issue of COVID, perhaps we need to go and look at other stories that are not just necessarily politics, because that's what surrounds us in South Africa.
The latest quarterly labour force survey released by Stats SA revealed that South Africa's unemployment rate had increased by 7.5 percentage points to 30.8% as a result of the pandemic. Journalists have not been spared from the jobs carnage, while the South African National Editors Forum says it has stepped in where it could to assist media practitioners in need.
We've managed to basically fund, it's over 200 people, and we gave them 5,000 rand a piece, and it was just to cover basic expenses, food, clothing, data costs. And we are now doing a fourth round where we will be continuing to give funds, because our sense is that the situation is still really bad out there.
Meanwhile, in the Newzroom Afrika newsroom, Zwane says as journalists have also endured hardships during the pandemic, mental health in newsrooms should be made a priority.
This has exposed a sense of vulnerability, because we're all vulnerable. Our mental health is one thing that we should never ignore, no matter what, even at the end of COVID. It is important for us to maintain a healthy lifestyle.
As vaccination gets underway in the country, government has assured journalists that they will be vaccinated during the second phase. While many industries are facing severe challenges due to COVID-19, the media sector is no exception. Journalists have had to find innovative ways of producing news, with some changes having the potential to be adopted forever. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Mbali Thethani in Johannesburg.